Welcome everyone to the Over Under Movies podcast, or should I say the Over Under TV podcast. For this episode, oh shit. My name is Dylan. Just welcome back everybody. I'm joined as always by my co-host, this is Jason Gong.
Hello, hello.
Today we're talking about The Boys. Season 4 is going to be a full spoilers episode, so if you haven't seen all of The Boys Season 4, this is your spoiler warning. We literally just watched the finale this week. We're going to be talking about it, going over what we liked, what we didn't like, and then at the end we'll get into a little bit of speculation into Season 5. So Jason, we're typically a movie podcast, so we're doing a TV show today because, listen, both of us really like this show, and we had a lot of thoughts on it. I've been a big fan of The Boys ever since the show started, and it's a show that is literally out in the absolute perfect time imaginable because superheroes are all the rage right now, and so this show is like a reaction to the culture surrounding superheroes. And it's not just a normal superhero show, it's like a meta commentary on superheroes, which I find very interesting. It looks at superheroes more as like marketing products than actual people, which I've always found interesting. And that continues through with season 4 here. So season 4 picks up after season 3, where they have a big fight at the top of the 7 Tower with Soldier Boy and Butcher versus Homelander. Ultimately, they don't kill Homelander at the end of season 3. They kind of like pass that buck on to this season. And then this season, a lot of it is they're trying to find like a type of like poison to give to superheroes,
Right.
Specifically Homelander, to kill him. That's something that was set up in Gen V season 1. For anybody that hasn't seen Gen V, I know you haven't.
Nope.
It's really good to like watch it because like the shows go chronologically. So it goes Boys season 3, then Gen V season 1, and then this season. We see a couple Gen V characters in this season, even though they didn't really do much. Anyway, Jason, what were your overall thoughts on The Boys Season 4? Did you like it more or less than the previous seasons?
You know, I think story-wise I liked it less, but, you know, when you're watching The Boys, you're partially just watching it because it's so over the top. There's a lot of, like, violence and spectacle and stupidity, and they brought all of that and more back to the table. So it's a good time, but I would say I slightly enjoy the other seasons more.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the general sentiment of a lot of fans, is that this season, it kind of feels like the season where people started jumping off a little bit when it comes to the show. I think a lot of people were thinking like maybe the Homelander storyline would get resolved at some point here and they would move on to, I guess, like spoilers for the comic, like turning Butcher into the big bad of the series that they ultimately need to take down. And it seems like that's not the direction that the show is going in. The show is going in kind of like a really comic accurate portrayal where by the end of it, Homelander basically takes over the government.
Yeah.
And they're setting up this conflict between the boys and Homelander, who now has the full might of the United States government behind him. And it's like, how are they beating that? That's like, you know, I guess speculation we can get in a little later. But yeah, it's interesting. Season 4, I think, has its main issue is the show has a lot of characters in it, and they added more characters in this season. And because of that, you kind of have to like give every character a little bit of development, right? So you need to have like your Frenchie and Kimiko, you know, B plot. You have to have a Huey B plot with his dad. You have like Starlight in her stuff with Firecracker.
Yep. And
not all of it is particularly relevant to the series, in my opinion. Like you want to get back to the Homelander stuff. That's like what's really compelling. And because of that, I think like you kind of get like maybe 10 to 15 minutes of like really juicy stuff every episode. And then the rest of it is like, I don't know, I don't really care about this.
Yeah, like the Frenchie stuff was particularly kind of boring. And then the Huey stuff with his dad in the hospital was very slow. And there weren't really very good ways for these different storylines to interweave with each other. It was just kind of random stuff happening. But eventually they kind of brought everyone back together for big showdowns and whatnot. And it was cool enough.
Yeah, so by the very end of the season, we have Butcher, who has been hallucinating this guy the entire season, who's played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I don't even remember the guy. Do you remember the guy's name that Jeffrey Dean Morgan plays?
Yeah, it's Joe Kessler.
Okay, so it's like a guy that Butcher used to work with, basically. That it sounds like Butcher like left him to die in some mission.
In the valley, yeah.
And so now he's hallucinating him. It's kind of like a reveal, I guess, 2/3 of the way through the season that it is a hallucination, and Butcher's the only one seeing him. Butcher's also hallucinating his dead wife, Becca, and he's kind of going through it, and the whole season is basically leading up to like Butcher's gonna die. He's like dying of some sort of virus that he's contracted from having having V in his system. And you think that he's going to die off in the finale. He doesn't die off. He fully embraces the virus, and he becomes like Venom, basically.
Yeah, so he gets cancer from the temp V that he took in the previous season, and then he takes regular V, and that turns the cancer, like the tendrils that come out of his body are the tumors that are killing him.
Oh, okay. It's a really cool power that he has, and we see him unleash it on Newman, which R.I.P. Victoria Newman. I'm very sorry, Jack Quaid, that your girlfriend got killed off the show.
Yeah, that's rough.
Tough look for Jack Quaid, but he's doing okay. He's doing more than okay. She gets ripped in half. Do we think the Newman is definitely dead?
She looked pretty dead.
I mean, she has blood superpowers, so
yeah.
I know that some, like, all heroes have some level of like super regeneration to them. I know like Kimiko specifically has like big time regeneration. She has like what like Deadpool has, where she can like regrow limbs and things like that.
Yeah, but it seems like getting torn in half is a pretty permanent death.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. Like Wolverine's been torn in half and he's always able to come back. So who knows?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a superhero show, so they can write in like literally anything. I have a feeling that they're just going to keep Newman dead. That is one change like from the comics, where in the comics, like Homelander basically kills the president and takes over. And in this one, it's like a peaceful transfer of power, I guess you can call it.
Relatively. Well, I don't know. Yeah, so Newman gets killed, and then the blame for that falls on the current president, and so he gets arrested for allegedly assassinating his vice president, and then that's why the Speaker of the House is able to, quote-unquote, peacefully transfer power to Homelander.
And I think, Homelander's kind of going through it in this season a little bit. I think Anthony Starr kind of carries this show, like, for decent portions of the season here. He's a really good actor, and I'm surprised, like, he hasn't gotten, like, picked up for, like, anything else. Maybe he's just, like, tired of superhero shit, and he's, like, doesn't want to...
I think so, too.
...make that his identity.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
Because, I mean, I'm sure, like, Marvel and DC are, like... blowing his phone up every chance they get. Who would be like the ideal DC or Marvel superhero for him?
A lot of people pitch him as Reverse Flash, which I guess, I mean, I don't know that much about Reverse Flash, but apparently that's a big fan casting for him. He could be a lot of superheroes. There's a lot of like jacked white guys with blonde hair superheroes.
I guess that's, I mean, the whole point of his design is that he's like...
Yeah, although he's actually brunette in real life, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's got to dye his hair every time.
Nah, there's actually more brown-haired superheroes, I think. So he could be like Hal Jordan. I don't know.
But Homelander kind of goes through like a crisis this season where he kind of doesn't know what he wants. He kind of gets sick, like early in the season, he's clearly sick and tired of everybody just kissing his ass. There's an incredible scene. I don't know if it's the first episode or the second episode where he tells Deep to blow A-Train.
Right.
And it's because everybody's so afraid of him, they'll just do anything.
Yeah.
And he's tired. He's tired of like all these like yes men around him. And so he enlists the help of Sister Sage, who is the smartest person on Earth. And I think her portrayal is really interesting because I feel like it's a kind of accurate portrayal of what the smartest person on Earth would be. And it would be that they were like horribly depressed all the time.
Just burnout, gifted kid. Yeah.
And she like yearns to like not be super smart anymore to the point where she has Deep like lobotomize her, which is fucking crazy. But like, yeah, every time we see her, she's like eating junk food and like getting lobotomized. Like, but she's also like a super genius. And so she kind of like hatches this plan for superheroes to take over the country, seemingly not out of like a feeling of like being evil, but just, she says in the finale, just to see if she could do it.
Yeah.
She just finds it interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. Like, she was a fun character and definitely like a different type of super than the ones that we're used to seeing on screen. So I'm excited to see more of her in the next season too. Yeah,
I'd be curious because like it seems like she doesn't have like super regeneration or anything like that. She seems pretty killable.
Right.
She gets shot in the head by MM, but her brain is like the one part of her that can like regrow. So he should have shot her literally anywhere else. The other soup that they bring into the 7 this season is Firecracker, who is clearly like a far right-wing like commentator parody I think Eric Kripke said that like she's based on like Marjorie Taylor Greene or something like that. So this like woman that's like super outspoken and like she has a conservative like talk show. We first see her at like a right-wing convention that she's speaking at. And it's tough to say like whether she's like all the way in on this or if she just kind of likes like the validation of people like agreeing with her and like her being popular. She has like a B plot with Starlight a little bit that they were both superheroes at like the teen superhero like conventions or whatever when they were younger, and Starlight was a bitch to her.
Right.
So she holds that grudge. She also takes a bunch of medication to make her lactate so she can breastfeed Homelander.
Yeah. Does everyone just know that that's his thing?
That's the thing that happens. Yeah, I guess it's never clarified like how she found that out.
Yeah, it seems like everyone at Vought just knows that Homelander does that.
She's been looking at Twitter.
Yeah,
all the gifs of Homelander drinking the milk. Listen, he's cool with it too. Homelander also, he's kind of like coming to grips with his own mortality a little bit. He has like a jar of like gray hairs that he keeps in his room, where he's clearly like someone that he's starting to look at his like legacy, right? Like what am I really here to do? He's like sick and tired of being like the marketing guy, right?
Yeah.
He's tired of being like the Superman that everybody looks up to. He actually like wants to go out and do everything. And eventually that ends in the climax of him taking over the government at the end of things. There's also like a horribly violent episode in the middle of the season where he goes back to like where he was like tested on at this facility, and he basically kills everybody in there. And two guys in particular don't make it out great.
Yeah.
It's a tough look. Homelander's always interesting. I saw a tweet that said like Homelander only kills people that are afraid of him. Anybody that like stands up to him, he doesn't kill them, which I'm sure is not 100% accurate. I'm sure there's like exceptions to that. But like in that episode that I was just talking about, there's one woman, I think her name's Barbara, like she stands up to him and says like, come on, you seriously doing this? You're like scare everybody. And like she's the only one he leaves alive.
Yeah, but by the end of it, she is scared of him because he murders everyone around her and leaves her in a room full of blood. Yeah, Homelander has been a great character. I know a lot of people were rooting for him to like get killed off this season to kind of move things along. But I think the idea of starting the next season with him as essentially the president is a really interesting place to start. So even though this season had kind of a few slower subplots, I think they brought us to a really good endpoint.
Yeah, because I think the show kind of had a tendency to be like thing of the week a lot, where there's like one specific thing that is the focus of that episode. And oftentimes like Homelander is not, he's just not the focus. And really it should be the focus. And I feel like season 5 is just going to be like pedal to the metal. Like every episode is like, we got to get to Homelander. We got to kill Homelander.
I think so too. It should be interesting because, yeah, at the end of this season, all the boys are scattered and then they all get captured. So we're really starting the next season off with like the boys in a bad spot and Homelander controlling everything.
No, I mean, this is about as bad as it can possibly get for the boys. And like Mallory gets killed off at the end by Ryan, like unintentionally, like he clearly didn't mean to kill her.
Yeah.
And she was like their like main connection with the CIA. So I'm guessing they don't have those connections anymore either.
Right.
So the fact that the boys have been working with the government basically for 2 seasons now, that can't happen anymore. So like, where do they turn to?
Who knows? I mean, they're all scattered and alone. We see those Gen V characters come back, and their main purpose, it seems like, was to just be henchmen for the Seven. So the Seven's got a lot of power on its side now.
Well, Gen V season 2 is going to chronologically come after season 4 here. So I guess like spoilers for the end of Gen V season 1, but like all of the good guy characters in that show get captured at the very end of that season. So they're in a facility together.
Okay, so maybe that's how season 5 will play out. Like the Gen V good guys will team up with the boys.
Yeah, and not just them. I mean, this season was also a redemption arc for A-Train.
Yep.
He's like fully on the side of the boys by the end of the season. He's not in the season finale, which is kind of funny. He's like, just getting out of Dodge.
He ran away right before shit hit the fan.
But even like the Deep seems like he's kind of like floundering a little bit, no pun intended, with like his loyalty to Homelander as well. Like he kills off his octopus girlfriend in the season, who's played by Tilda Swinton, which is fucking incredible. And he seems like he's kind of having a crisis of conscience a little bit too. There's a Black Noir comes back even though he was killed off in season 3. they just swap him with another guy.
Yeah, because he's in a full body mask and suit. Yeah, I don't know. I think those guys will stay loyal to Homelander, or maybe just run away at the end.
I think, I mean, I guess we could speculate a little bit here. Like, how do we think the series is going to resolve itself? And I don't think the show is going to end with like superhero genocide, even though that is one of the possibilities. It's one of the roads that can go down here, because like the virus that gets set up in Gen V is that they can make it airborne. And so they can kill every superhero on the planet, you know, anybody that's got V in their system. And obviously at this point, like a lot of good guys have V in their system. So are you going to kill off all those people? Or are you going to kill off Starlight and Kimiko and all this? Like, probably not.
Right.
So what's the alternative? The alternative is like you kill Homelander, and like most other superheroes turn on Homelander by the end of it. And so it's him versus everybody. And then like probably Butcher dies as well. Like Butcher's kind of like the Walter White of the series. Like it sounds like, you know, he's the one that's going to go down as like, you know, he's the anti-hero. Nobody's rooting for Butcher, but he's the guy he's doing what he needs to do.
Yeah, he's not going to make it out. Yeah, I think it could be similar to the comics where, you know, they kill Homelander and then Butcher will still want to unleash the virus because he just hates soups, and they'll probably stop him.
Or Huey kills him.
Yeah, that's how the comic ends.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most like, you know, probable outcome of this, is that like everybody comes out of this like alive, except for Homelander and except for Butcher.
Yeah, I could see that being the case.
And then the final fight is, you know, all the good guy heroes versus like Homelander's like army of bad guy heroes. You know, we see some of them pop up at the very end of the finale there. Mother's Milk gets taken out by the guy with the giant penis.
I forgot about that guy.
Soup.
Where's he from?
He was in the Hero-gasm episode.
Oh, okay. That's so silly.
That's when like MM gets like just like covered in jizz.
That's crazy. But yeah, it'll be cool to see more superheroes fighting each other. That's always just good stuff when you're.
Yeah, we don't see much of that in this show. A lot of it's just like hand-to-hand combat, and I'm sure, you know, this show clearly has a big budget, but does it have that big of a budget? Maybe, you know, Amazon will shill it out, like, you know, give those Disney
maybe for the last season.
For the last season.
Yeah, that'd be cool. We did get to see like A-Train fight the Deep, and that was a pretty one-sided battle because the Deep can breathe underwater and A-Train has super speed. Yeah, we saw a lot of good fights this season. There was always like at least one really cool thing per episode.
Yeah, a lot of weird stuff too in this season. I guess we can talk about the constant sexual assault of Huey in this season, which is
that's
probably like the lowest point that people have talked about.
Yeah, so Huey, like the first time he's going undercover to infiltrate Tech Knight's party, but then Tech Knight brings him to the Tech Cave, which is just a sex dungeon, and Huey has to go along with it to keep his cover. And then he also doesn't know the safe word that he's supposed to know, and
which is Zendaya.
Yeah, so he gets assaulted. And it's just treated like a joke the whole time. And no one really helps him through it afterwards. He just suffers. And then he gets assaulted again because a shapeshifter shapeshifts into Starlight and sleeps with him. And he doesn't know that it's someone else.
Sleeps with him a lot.
Yeah, 10 times, they said.
Which,
20 times in 10 days.
A little bit of this might be on Huey. If
that's victim blaming.
If you're in a long-term relationship with somebody and then they get swapped out with a shapeshifter, you should probably notice that, you know, something's up with them.
Well, the shapeshifter also is a telepath that can read minds and steal people's memories. So she knew everything that Starlight knew. So she was able to do a good job pretending to be her. Yeah,
I mean, Starlight does... She has like kind of a point at the end of the finale there, where clearly like, you know, Huey was probably like enamored with this version of Starlight who was like super happy and like into him
really
all the time.
Agreeable. Yeah.
Where, you know, throughout the season, Starlight is like having a really fucking rough go of things. She has this like nonprofit that she put together called like the Starlighters. And like the Starlighters get like basically decimated throughout the season.
Yeah.
She's having a personal issue where she can't like use her superpowers anymore for some reason, like it ain't working.
Yeah.
So, you know, she's going through a lot of stuff, and then, you know, she finds out Huey was like sleeping with the shapeshifter like a lot. It wasn't like a couple times.
Yeah, it's 20
I
times.
can understand her being upset. It's perfectly fine that she's upset. She's not like, I don't think she's victim blaming per se. You know, people are allowed to have emotions. I think by the end of it, like they understand that they're together in all of this.
Yeah,
right.
They make up. I mean, they leave together, so ostensibly they have semi-resolved their conflict with each other.
And then they're immediately split apart when they get captured.
By bad
and
guys.
Starlight gets away. So like, where's Starlight gonna go? I mean, my assumption is that Starlight is going to start like the recruitment campaign. Like she's gonna go to Maeve. She's gonna go to A-Train. Like she's gonna try to get like some soups together.
Yeah, I don't know about all of that. She doesn't know where A-Train is, and Maeve doesn't have powers anymore. But she'll probably find someone to back her up. I don't even know who's left besides the two people you just named.
Ashley's still alive. Ashley's got V in her system now.
That's
Shout out to Ashley. What do we think Ashley's powers are going to be?
I don't know. It made her lose all her hair.
No, the hair is already a thing.
Oh, she's just bald. So she
nervously plucks at her hair. We find that out at the end of season 3 that she wears wigs.
Okay, well, it popped her wig off. She just seems to be turning into a monster. Maybe she gets, like, Hulk powers or something.
Yeah, that'd be funny.
That would be kind of funny.
I guess we can talk about some of the other story, like the other B plots real quick here. Frenchie has like a guy that he's hooking up with early in the season, and then he finds out that the guy is the son of the judge's family that he murders in season 3.
I don't even remember that story.
Yeah, nobody remembers that storyline because it's not important.
Who did he kill in season 3? What judge?
It was like the Russian woman that he like used to work with to like, to finally like wrap up his life with her. He had to like kill these people. And it was like one last job. And then, I guess the son wasn't with him at the time. And that's the guy that he's hooking up with. It's not important. Nobody cares about it.
Yeah.
But because of that, Frenchie kind of has like a crisis of like, holy shit, I'm a murderer.
Yeah.
I need to go to jail.
So he goes to jail for 1 episode or 2 episodes, and then he's immediately back out once the boys need him.
Yeah, he's pardoned. They're like, we're buddies with the president, dude. Let's go.
It's like, not only is the subplot boring, but it also doesn't go anywhere. He just ends up in the same place he was before, working with the boys.
Yeah, I don't know if Frenchie, like, his stuff totally works. Mother's Milk is kind of similar, where clearly, like, they need, like, a leader character that's not Butcher, right? But, like, he's got a little bit of stuff with A-Train throughout this season, but I think the show, at times, it suffers from, it just has too many characters.
Yeah.
There's too many characters that you got to, like, follow throughout an episode, and you're like, do we show Frenchie stuff this episode? Do we show MM stuff this episode? We got Homelander and Ryan. We got Butcher. We got Huey. We got Starlight. Like, we got to show everybody.
Yeah.
And, like, it just gets so convoluted that by the time you get to the end of the season, it's like, oh, shit, we got to wrap things up.
Yeah.
Like, how are we actually moving on here?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the reasons why Huey's storyline felt so off this season is because, like, part of the comics and part of the first few seasons, it's like Huey and Butcher almost have, like, a father-son relationship. I know that it's more of, like, an older brother, younger brother thing, but, like, Huey looks up to Butcher, and that's their dynamic. He's kind of Butcher's conscience and all that, but then that kind of gets replaced with Ryan, and then Ryan becomes...
Yeah, because Butcher would always, like, refer to Huey as, like, his, like, stand-in for Lenny, his dead younger brother.
Yeah.
We just don't see a lot of Butcher in general with the rest of the group this season. He's kind of disconnected from everybody else, and I think that it isn't really a great choice because Butcher is... I mean, he's the second most important character in the show. It's Homelander, then it's Butcher, then it's all the rest of the characters. So having Butcher be, like, disconnected from everybody else kind of, like, I don't know, kind of pigeonholes you a little bit with, like, the types of stories you can tell.
Yeah, and everyone's, like, just seems mad at Butcher from the jump this season. I forget, like, what he did. I guess he was taking the Temp V and being relatively volatile in season 3. But, like, they kind of kick him out of the boys and then randomly bring him back in and then kick him out again.
Yeah, and they're like, we don't trust you.
Yeah, and it's stupid. Like... that whole group is full of volatile people, and Butcher's one of the most competent among them. And then by, constantly ostracizing him, they kind of turn him towards the dark side. It's part of what gives Kessler control over him.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we tend to see a lot with shows that go on for longer than they should, where it kind of branches off from the main premise a little bit too much. I mean, the elevator pitch of this show is that there's a group of largely non-superpowered people who are taking the fight to superheroes to try to take them out because superheroes have too much power. And at this point, it's just all these separate storylines now with these different characters. And I'm hoping that season 5 gets back to the basics a little bit here, that, you know, probably like an episode or two into the season, all the boys are back together. Maybe they've recruited some other superheroes with them, and now they're going to try to like work on taking the fight to Homelander. And obviously, like, you know, the season's got to wrap up everything, even though there's still Gen V going on, and there's at least one other spinoff that they're working on. I think it's called, what is it called? The Boys Mexico? I think it's called.
That's it. Just The Boys Mexico.
And it's Diego Luna and is it what's his name? The guy that's in everything, the Mando. What the hell's his name?
Pedro Pascal.
Is it Diego Luna and Pedro Pascal in it?
I'm not sure.
I don't even know the full cast, but Diego Luna is definitely in it. And I don't know if it's just a different like storyline that takes place in Mexico, like how they're going to do it. Gen V is interesting because Gen V like directly ties into the boys. There's like a lot of crossover stuff with it. And I'd be curious to see if this like concept of a franchise works once you start like branching off into different stuff. Especially with, I mean, there's like horror stories all over the place. So as soon as you get away from the source material, you know, things start to get messed up. I mean, luckily for the boys, this is the one show where I think like across the board, everybody says that the show is better than the comic.
It is, yeah.
Unless you're like, I don't know, outwardly racist. you think that the show is a lot better than the comic. But I think the comic, when it comes to like the bullet points of like where the story goes, I think they like largely get it right. And hopefully it follows something like similar to that.
Yeah, they take ideas and just kind of switch it up. The comic is like really not very good. Like not just because it's over the top, but it's also just kind of boring.
And also in the comic, I guess like the big change is that all the boys have 10 feet that they're taking, right?
Yeah, they take it and then they just fight superheroes. So it's just superheroes fighting each other. Whereas the show, they have to get creative about how they take out the 7. There's a lot more like intrigue. But yeah, the show has to be really creative when it comes to these normal people fighting the superheroes. In the comics, they take Temp V from day one and then they just go beat up superheroes. And it's very dumb.
I guess like the two main points that we haven't talked about yet. First, I guess we can talk about Newman. Newman's the major character that gets killed off in season 4 here. I think people really like that character a lot. I don't think that's not a character that's in the comics, right?
I think there's a character that she's based off of, but he's a male character and he's completely different.
Yeah, so she's clearly meant to be like an AOC stand-in.
That's how she started off. She really diverged after
But she's like this superhero that is secretly a superhero, that she is like one president death away from the White House, and we think the entire season is going to be leading up to them killing the president, and Newman's going to be the one that takes over. And that's not what happens. And by the end of it, she's clearly like very remorseful of like, how the fuck did I get here? I've like turned into Homelander's puppet all of a sudden. And I think it makes sense for her to get killed off, even though I'm sure a lot of people aren't happy with it. Like, what are they going to do? Like make her a member of the boys? That would have been like the alternative, right?
Right.
And I think Huey like talks about it, like they can't trust her. They've been fighting her for like 2 seasons now.
Yeah. It's interesting because in the first episode of this season, they try to kill her, and then by the last episode, they want to save her, but Butcher's like, nope.
I mean, what do you think of Butcher? Do you think he's like a necessary evil in this show?
I don't think they're gonna kill Homelander without him. I think he's gonna be the one who takes down Homelander, or maybe Ryan will, but no, Butcher's going to be a key component in saving America.
That's the one character we haven't talked about yet, is Ryan. And Ryan's kind of like the real curveball here because, you know, Mallory kind of like, you know, dumps all the stuff on him about like the circumstances of how he was conceived. And Ryan clearly is in denial about it still. And, you know, it's unfair to expect like a kid to like, you know, be this weapon to take out his dad. But, and it's what like, you know, Kessler's trying to say to Butcher is like, realistically, Ryan is the best one to take out Homelander. He has Homelander's powers, and really like, he's probably stronger than Homelander, you know, once he like reaches like full strength. And obviously he's not old enough yet, but he's such a strange character because like Ryan, he's clearly like a good kid, but he accidentally kills at least 2 people this season.
Yep.
And that's just like a thing that happens in the show. People getting accidentally murdered, like fucking brutally. And like, where does Ryan go? What happens with him? I feel like his only resolution is that he joins the boys at some point. Like, he just goes full, like, I'm on your guys' side.
Yeah, which I don't think is particularly interesting because they've been like harping on it so much this season. They're like, well, Ryan can do it. Ryan can kill Homelander. And then if that's the actual resolution, then I don't think that's, that's not much.
Do you think it would
twist.
be more interesting that Ryan is fully indoctrinated and he's just on Homelander's side by the end of it?
No, I don't think that's that interesting either. I think they have to like figure out something else to do with Ryan besides, him just working for the boys or working with Homelander.
Those are the two sides.
Yeah, but there's other options. Television writers are creative and,
That's debatable.
Well, these television writers are relatively creative, so we'll see.
Because that's an issue that, we've been talking about this whole episode here is like giving side characters things to do. Ryan's like out in the wind right now. We have no idea what's going to happen with Ryan.
Yeah, I think he'll fight Homelander at some point, but I don't know if he'll be the one to finish him off. Could be interesting.
Yeah, it's tricky. He's a tricky character, especially because he's like a kid. That makes it even trickier. Hopefully that actor isn't like 25 years old by the time the next season comes out.
Yeah, it should be out in like 2 years, they said.
Have you seen like the trailers for the new Stranger Things season?
No.
And it's like, holy, these are just like full-grown adults.
Yeah, they're
like riding bikes.
They're our age at this point.
Yeah, those kids got back problems.
It's wild.
It's tough look.
Yeah, these streaming shows that come out every 2 to 3 to 4 years, they got to switch that up.
Overall, would you say that you enjoyed this season?
Oh, definitely. It was fun to watch. It was fun to talk about.
Yeah, it's got a lot of flaws for sure. And I think it's a side effect of a show going on for this long. There's a lot of shit that happens in it. And yeah, you could do like a really tight, like 2 or 3 season show that culminates in like the end of the comic book. But clearly they wanted to like milk it a little bit more. And I think it's fine. There's a lot of interesting characters they're bringing in. I'm sure they're going to bring in more characters next season. We're going to see Soldier Boy again. He was like the post-credit scene.
The stinger.
I have no idea what's going to happen with Soldier Boy.
Yeah, I didn't really care for I think the way they wrapped him up was fine in season 3. Like, he just goes back on ice, which is like the one thing he wanted to avoid. I think that's a pretty fitting end for that character. But yeah, thawing him out again.
And obviously, Soldier Boy has the power to like remove superpowers from. So they could go the Avatar route, and instead of killing Homelander, they take away his powers.
I could kind of see that happening. Yeah,
they go full Firelord Ozai with him.
Yeah.
And what does a depowered Homelander even look like? He'd
be so sad.
He probably just kills himself.
That would be a good ending, I think. Avatar: The Last Airbendering.
What they find a way to like amplify Soldier Boy's powers and just like de-soup everybody.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And then the post-credit scene is there's like 1 vial of V left or something like that.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
So yeah, there's multiple different routes they can go with it. I'm really excited for season 5. I'm happy they're ending it with season 5, that they're not dragging this on any longer. Too many horror stories of shows that they went on like a season or 2 seasons or 3 seasons too long, and people just don't give a shit by the end of it. The biggest culprit is Walking Dead. I mean, I'm guessing you were a Walking Dead fan like in the early seasons, right?
3 seasons.
Because like everybody was. Everybody loved Walking Dead for 2-3 seasons.
How many
and they just
seasons
jumped off.
did they do? Like 9?
It was a lot.
Yeah.
And they're still doing like spin-offs and shit with characters.
Yeah, and the spin-offs are basically just the same as the main show.
Yeah, they took the problem that we've been talking about here where there's too many B-plots of different characters, and they're like, why don't we take those B-plots and make them their own show?
Yeah, not good.
But yeah, The Boys is great. If you haven't watched The Boys, holy shit, you're in for a treat.
Yeah.
Really fun show. Even if you're not like a big fan of like Marvel or like superhero stuff in general, the superhero stuff is not the point of the series. I mean, the show is very vulgar and insanely violent. I mean, it's probably the most violent show on television, and it's not even fucking close.
Yeah, it's a show that's always trying to like one-up itself, which makes it fun to watch, but can also like offend, or sometimes they go too far with things. But
yeah, it's a little gratuitous, obviously. Like, yeah, it can lead to things like sexual assault being played for laughs, which is not great. But I think overall it's a good show, and I really enjoyed season 4. Give it a thumbs up. Recommend. Any final thoughts, Jason, on The Boys season 4?
Not too much. I just think that I really like the ways they've diverged from the comic. I think it's a lot more interesting to have Sister Sage develop this whole plan over how to take over the government versus in the comics where I think Homelander kind of just goes to the White House and takes over the government.
Yeah, I think Sister Sage might like turn on Homelander at some point too. Yeah. I don't think there's a single character that is like 100% certain to stay with Homelander on his side the entire season. I think we can see, like, if we're going like episode by episode, I think we might start seeing like characters like fall by the wayside like one by one.
Yeah,
as they realize like we may have like seriously fucked up here.
Yep. Which I think would be a good way to go about it.
But yeah, cool. That's gonna be our episode here, guys. We will return next week with more movie content.
That's right.
Did you see the Emmys did like their nominations this week?
I didn't see what got nominated, but whatever. The Bear will win stuff again.
You know what had the most nominations? Shogun.
Really?
25 nominations for Shogun. Go watch Shogun. We did not do a Shogun review episode. We talked about it.
Yeah, we meant to.
Shogun's awesome. Like, there's my 10-second review of Shogun. Go watch it. It's just one season. It's supposed to be limited.
Yeah.
But the show was way, way, way too popular, and they're like, fuck it, season 2, baby.
I don't even know what they're going to do, but yeah, we're getting another season of that.
Yeah. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of the Over Under TV podcast. Make sure you check us out on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Pods. Check us out on Patreon. Give us $2 a month so you can get your name in the credits, all that good stuff. And check out our Discord server, talk about movies, all that good stuff with us. For myself, for Jason, we will catch you guys in the next one. See you at the movies.
Bye.
See you on your couch, I guess.
Yeah.